Hello, everybody. It's 4 o'clock, and I see we're getting all of our attendees coming in. Nice to see everyone. I think we're gonna go ahead and get started with our Grayson birthday celebration. I'll start with introducing myself. My name is Lexi. I am the Wolf Care Specialist at the International Wolf Center, and I'm going to be sharing a quick video about Grayson and his life, some just kind of milestones he's hit, and we'll afterwards kind of do what we did last time with Blackstone and Kaz. We actually had the camera go in and kind of get a closer view at the wolves as they kind of share Grayson's cake with him. There's actually four this time, so we'll see. I think that'll be fun to see how that goes. But yeah, let's go ahead and get started. Share my screen. Oh, and one thing I'll mention too, please feel free if you have any questions to ask them, but if you don't mind putting them in the Q&A box instead, that makes it a little easier for us to get through them. So we really appreciate that. But let's go ahead and get started with our video. So Grayson's birthday celebration. Here's Grayson and Axel as pups. We actually got them in late May, but they were born on May 2nd, 2016. We got them a little later in May, like I mentioned. That's kind of not our typical route when it comes to getting pups at the International Wolf Center, but socialization with them still went great. If you see Grayson now at 9, he is very comfortable in his home at the International Wolf Center. But as pups, it was pretty clear that between Axel and Grayson was the more kind of timid, maybe a little more cautious, and definitely always watchful of his surroundings, which still holds true to his personality today. He is very watchful of his territory and his pack mates. So that's a attribute that he hasn't kind of lost throughout the years. So you can see him there as a pup watching over his pup enclosure. Here's Axel and Grayson as yearlings once they got kind of integrated into the enclosure. Littermates always have a strong bond, so you can see them kind of doing that more playful behavior, chasing around a stick, circling around. That's very typical of younger wolves. But for Grayson, again, being more timid, it was definitely seen that he was a little more hesitant to interact with his adult pack mates. So at the time, that was Denali, Bolts, and then there was Aiden. Now, Aiden was kind of the contrary there. So you can see him kind of looking down, getting a higher vantage point, looking down at Denali as he ate. Again, cautiously approaching him, but being submissive with his ears back. Um, Kind of different here with Aiden. So Aiden was the pack leader at the time, and pretty much immediately Grayson kind of took to him and got a lot of comfort from him, which Aiden seemed to be, very willing to kind of give him patience and time, and he really ended up instilling a lot of his behaviors onto Grayson. But what was so interesting was with Grayson, he was so cautious and timid that a lot of people thought that, he was that more submissive litter mate with Axel, who is a little more rambunctious and willing to kind of get into any situation. Um, and that kind of showed itself later in Grayson's life. This is a great video because it shows just how different Grayson looks in his younger years. He was actually nicknamed Grayback because he had that darker saddle on his back. And as he grew in age, he started to lose that coloration, which is typical of all wolves. They start to gray or white out with age, kind of just like humans do, start to go gray as well. So here he is, a couple of years older, again, looking a lot more like he does today, having those pack interactions with Denali and Bolts. But eventually, it was just actually Axel and Grayson in the enclosure for about a year. And we saw a lot of those interactions between them where Axel was able to really dominate over Grayson. And that changed a little bit throughout the years, kind of seeing Axel not really having as many pack interactions like maybe Grayson was with Rika in 2021. So she came in as a young pup, and it was pretty clear that Grayson was showing her those kind of gentle interactions that Aiden had showed him when he was a pup. So there's young Rika doing some jaw sparring with him, and he's being very tolerant. He's also very well known for howling, so he is our most vocal wolf. That's never changed. And here he is with Blackstone and Kaz when they came in as pups in 2022. Still seeing that kind of subordinate behavior from them because Axel, his littermate, actually passed in April of 2024, and pretty immediately Grayson became the pack leader. So you see him kind of giving those warning signs. His tail is up high. He has grown so much in confidence in the last year, and we're seeing a very cohesive pack. So he's resting in proximity with Rika there. Blackstone, he is the omega of the pack right now, so the lowest ranking individual, but he's obviously very comfortable with his pack mates here. And so this was taken just a couple weeks ago. Grayson, relaxing, soaking in the sun. That's kind of been their go-to for these days when we actually have the sun, because we actually had snow this morning. If you could believe it, you probably can. Snow in Ely, Minnesota in May. But yeah, that's kind of where our video ends here, and we're gonna get started on trying to see how the wolves interact with their birthday cakes. So I'm going to, let's see here. Let me make sure I have everything pulled up. I'm gonna open up Q&A as well. I wasn't able to see it before, but now I can. So if anyone has questions, please feel free to type those in there. I'd be happy to answer. But our interpretive center director is actually going to be going in. Let's see. Okay, so there she is. She's in our pack holding area, and you can see our 4 cakes. So I'm gonna spotlight her. There are the wolves at the gate. Hopefully everyone can see that. If you can't, please let me know. Okay, looks like we're all good. So there's the wolves. So the pack holding area is a part of our retirement enclosure. The wolves actually come in here every day to get weighed. So they're very comfortable with this space. So you can see the 4 cakes that I'm pretty sure our assistant wolf curator Abby made. So these are actually pretty attuned to Grayson's taste. And you can see he just picked one right up and went off with it. So Grayson's a big fan of pork. So these are actually more of a layered cake, which I thought was great. So big pork roast was kind of split up into slices. And there's some lamb cakes in between, kind of like a wolf's version of frosting in a way. So now Rika's carrying one off too. This is great. So I did try to kind of space these out a bit, so maybe they would have more opportunity for everyone to get a share. It seems like it's working pretty well. But you know, one thing that we always like to mention when it comes to wolves and food is that everyone has the right to food. So just because Grayson is our current dominant male, you know, doesn't mean that he gets the right to eat any more than anyone else. And typically, a wolf pack wants to share resources and try to make sure everyone's healthy. Um, that's no exception for these guys, even if they are in captivity. You just saw there Kaz, who is very well known as our most, he's kind of more hungry, I'd say, than the rest, and very willing to come up and food guard or even food beg, where they'll come up and kind of start licking at each other's muzzles. Typically seen as more of a pup thing to do, but you'll see that Kaz and Blackstone do that a lot with Grayson. So, but Grayson ran off with it and kind of showed Kaz that he didn't want to share, which is totally fine. We're getting a really great Grayson close up here. Um, Again, he is doing really well, really maintaining his status. Again, you could see that high T2 tail, and here's some of that circling from Kaz, ears back, trying to see what he might be able to get. but Grayson kind of ran off with that again. Taking it back into the pack holding area. Looks like Blackstone very well may have his own cake and is kind of hanging off in the pack holding area, not trying to get into the mix of what's going on with all of this following. Um, and thank you everyone for writing some comments here. So someone asked, what's Grayson's favorite food? So that's a great question. I'd say, yeah, for more like meats that you could get from the grocery store, pork is his favorite. Pretty much any type of pork, even ground pork, he likes a lot. He doesn't seem to like beef as much, and he likes chicken quite well too. And then when it comes to carcass feedings, here we do 2 carcass feedings per week typically. So beaver on Wednesdays, and then a roadkill deer on Sundays. And he typically seems to like the deer a bit more. But he also really likes the liver. So that's a very nutrient dense part of the animal. So a lot of times you'll see him kind of go right in for the liver when it comes to a carcass feeding, which makes a lot of sense. Does Grayson have a favorite pack mate? That's a good question. Like I kind of briefly mentioned, we have a really cohesive pack right now, so you'll actually see that they all spend quite a bit of time together, but of course, they always have their alone time too. But more often than not, they're kind of resting in the same area together, which is always great to see. Grayson definitely has a strong alliance with Blackstone, and you'll kind of notice that he seems to kind of be a little more um maybe easy with him. If Blackstone tries to take his food or anything like that, he may not really do much about it, but then if Kaz kind of comes in, he may kind of pin him or chase him off like he was doing earlier. And I think it really does have to do with kind of personality differences too. Blackstone typically isn't the kind who will go and try to um, take Grayson's food, where Kaz is kind of doesn't really seem to mind. He'll go after pretty much anything and see what he can get. Do they ever get fish? That's a great question. So our pond system, we fill it and filter it all ourselves. So we're filling it up once we're not having colder temperatures at night. But we will put fish in there for them. So that's a really great way to get them to go in the pond on a hot summer day, maybe use some of those behaviors that we like to see, just a good enrichment for them. Um, let's see. Let's see. Are there any females at the center? So Rika is our only female, and so yeah, we have the 3 males and then Rika, and that's kind of how it typically stays. We don't normally have more than one female. Kind of seems, she's the dominant female. That's her role in the pack right now. And you could just see Grayson there. Of course, they're going a little deeper into the woods here, but Grayson was just scraping. So maybe he did a urination, which he's doing right there, kind of spreading his scent around. You'll see him do that a lot. He may even overmark Kaz if Kaz urinated. Again, just kind of show his status as the dominant male. Let's see. Someone asked if there's a favorite hiding spot. Yes, so they're kind of going in that area right now into the woods. We'll see that happen a lot more as we get warmer weather because we have an 1.25 acre enclosure and it's thickly wooded, very naturalistic habitat. So once all the leaves grow in, there's so much shade provided for them back there. So we definitely say in summertime it's best to try and spot them either here on site through our windows or on the cameras in the early morning or in the evening when temperatures are a little cooler and there's more opportunity for them to not be in a lot of sun. Let's see. Looking for more. Oh, someone asked what time they're fed. Yes, so they're fed on Saturdays at 7 p.m. Central Time. So we typically like to move the camera facing where the food gets um, put out and try to make sure that people who can't come watch What's for Dinner on Saturdays get the chance to watch them eat. It's pretty great. When will the next set of wolves be introduced to the pack? That's a good question. So we're actually hoping to get pups this summer. Um, but if you've kind of followed along with the IWC for a while, you may know it's definitely a big process. We don't have our pups born here on site. We're not a facility that it's not our goal to have pups. So we like to bring them in every 4 years typically, and that kind of follows a good pattern of pack dynamics and kind of keeping a good amount of wolves in the enclosure. We can fit up to, I believe, 8 wolves in the enclosure, but typically we like to stay around 6, so that there's plenty of space for all the wolves. So we get in contact with facilities a long time in advance before we're hoping to get them, so that we can see if they're breeding and kind of stay in contact with them. So we do have a couple facilities that we are in contact with for this summer, but it's all a waiting game. Kind of, as we always like to say, Mother Nature is the one who decides if we're having pups. Like I said before, we have one female here, Rika, and we want to stay that way. So we don't want to introduce any other females. So we'd want 2 males. So yeah, we're just kind of waiting to see how that will go on getting pups this summer. So let's see. Will that be a separate pack or will they be integrated into the current pack? That's a great question. So, our goal is to get pups around 10 to 14 days old, and they will be separate from the adults until around 3 months old. That is so that they can be at you know, a good weight, a good size, to be out in an acre and a quarter of dense woods, but also so we can socialize them. So that means that our pups, when they're brought here, are with our wolf care team 24/7, always with humans, not only for, just keeping watch of them, but there's also a lot of in-depth work that goes to socializing. We're trying to get them as accustomed to their life at the International Wolf Center as possible. So introducing them to their wolf care team so they become comfortable and hopefully, willing to let us do medical care. That's our biggest goal, but we also want them to hear a leaf blower or hear the sirens that go off and not get frightened. We want them to be comfortable and relaxed in their space. So we introduce them to a lot of typical things they'll be seeing in their lifetime here. And then when they're around 3 months old, we will introduce them to the pack. But throughout those months, they do have the ability to see and smell the adults, as well as the adults seeing and smelling the pups. So, of course, scent and visual is really important for these animals. So, getting to have that everyday time where they're safely interacting between 2 layers of fencing allows them to kind of create that bond. And then, come time for introduction, it's done slowly, and there's kind of a lot that goes into that as well, so that we can hopefully have that kind of seamless transition into the pack. Um, the enclosure looks like there isn't much grass. Does that affect them during the summer, or does the grass come in? That's a good question. Definitely watch the cams, or if you're able to visit, either or, you'll see that in summer the enclosure becomes lush with greenery, tall grasses, ferns, beautiful trees. Um, it's a very beautiful enclosure, and you'll probably see wolf care staff coming in to have to trim some branches because it will just become so thick that sometimes you can't even see the wolves if they're up front. So, yeah, just one female. That's what I was talking about. So, females tend to be a little more intense with their daily interactions. You'll find that there's a lot of um interactions with males where, and really all pack mates, where they're kind of testing for dominance and rank, and that can happen pretty much on a daily basis. And for some reason, it seems males, it doesn't get as intense as it does with females. So more often than not, in facilities that have a pack rather than maybe two individuals together, just having one female tends to, she's the dominant female. Everything kind of stays a little more calm that way. Um, let's see. Do the wolves have favorite enrichments? That's a good question. So, um, we try to do a lot of different enrichments. They definitely like the food-based ones, but we don't always like to do food-based, of course. We want to enrich all of their senses if we can. So, we will, like I said, put fish in the enclosure, and that kind of helps with their um those hunting instincts. We like to give them sense as well. So, um, one thing that isn't necessarily enrichment that we plan to do for scents and, smelling is natural bug spray. So, we're going to be getting the mosquitoes and the black flies here soon enough. And we use natural bug spray that has like lemongrass oil or I'm pretty sure it's typically we do lemongrass. That's a really good one. And that's just kind of a new scent that they're not smelling every single day. And you may see them scent roll. I'm sure if you have a dog, you've seen them find something that maybe you don't want them to find, but they end up kind of rolling their bodies and getting it all over themselves. Yeah, we like to give them different scents that can give them that opportunity. Let's see. Okay, I saw, yeah, camera's back, right. Grayson's still up front. It's like he knows it's his birthday celebration. It's great. Do they receive heartworm preventative and flea and tick treatment? Yes, they do. So we do all of those treatments. Um, and yeah, we like to try and keep them safe. Of course, it's like, you know, you never know. They're living out in their woods. We like to try and keep them as safe as possible. But preventative days are always interesting when you try to get them to take a big pill because wolves don't want to take pills. But normally, if you give them enough of a good kind of base, like I said, maybe some ground beef or ground pork, um, that can get them a little more interested in taking it. Um, Someone said it's just showing a black screen. I can see it on mine. If someone else could write and see if they're we also just have a couple more minutes. It went by very quick, 4:24. But let's see, how frequently are they handled? That's a good question. Um, so we do go in with the wolves every day as a wolf care team. But we always like to preface that any of the wolf care team members are highly trained. There are three of us who are on the wolf care team. And aren't volunteers. All the rest of us are volunteers who have been doing this for many, many years and have worked with so many of our past ambassadors and learned so much from them to continue giving care to the next generations that come here. So it's pretty incredible to see these people at work. It's just great to learn from them as, the newest member of the team. And I'm very grateful for that. But yeah, we're all, highly trained to be able to go in and work with them. Of course, we do that intensive 3 months of socialization so that they're not fearful of humans. If you were to see a wolf out in the wild, which is very rare, their instinct is to run and get away from humans as quickly as possible. And even if wolves are born in captivity, if they're not socialized, they very much will still have that instinct in them. So our goal is to socialize them so that on a daily basis we can go in and check on them. So we kind of go in and we greet for maybe 5 to 10 minutes, and that's just reestablishing our trust that we have between us, the wolves and the humans. And it's again a small set of humans that they do trust. Um, and that allows us to again shift them to a different enclosure, to weigh them, those daily practices that are important for keeping them healthy and keeping them safe, which is very important to us. Thank you everyone for saying you could see well. Let's see. Someone asked how Grayson know it's his birthday and to stay in front of the camera. I don't know. It's pretty incredible. You've got these, they are very smart animals, and that's for sure. Again, Grayson is highly aware of his surroundings. Um, if you watch the cams again, you'll see where he is kind of patrolling the area. He's very vocal, as I mentioned, and you'll maybe more often than not see him howling. Maybe he heard a siren, or maybe he even heard wild wolves in the area. And you may see the other three kind of looking at him and not seeming to really react because kind of seems like, Grayson's got it. Grayson's got it covered. He's always watching. Someone asked, are they permitted to hunt in the enclosure? If not, can we explain why? That's a great question. So, like I mentioned, it is a full thriving ecosystem within their enclosure, which is really special. But it does mean that some animals get in the enclosure that we cannot help. They just do it. We have a lot of birds, songbirds, ravens, turkey vultures, sometimes eagles fly through. Um, Nothing we can do about that. We also get squirrels and chipmunks, little things like that. If they end up catching them, there's nothing we can really do about it, but we don't put anything live in there for them just because ethically it's not really fair to either the prey or the wolves. If we were to put a deer in there, deer are able to, do a swift kick to a wolf and they could kill them, or vice versa, a wolf could corner a deer and they wouldn't have that chance they'd have outside of a fenced in space to run and get away. So instead, we feed them, commercial meats like, uh, you know, raw chicken, beef, pork, and then give them those natural foods as well, like the beaver and the deer, to kind of keep up that natural food that they'd be eating in the wild. Oh, good question. And this maybe I'll do this as the last um, question here because I only have a minute left. But Grayson is 9. What's the average life expectancy in captivity? Great question. Wolves in the wild typically are gonna maybe live to, 4 to 6 years, if that. There's so much going against them in the wild, but here in captivity, it's kind of more similar to your dog at home. So we actually had Grizzer here who is 17 and a half. That's not your average life expectancy. He was just, the oldest wolf that we had here. Pretty incredible animal. They all are. But, that can kind of vary though, depending on if they have health concerns or anything like that. Um, but I'd say maybe an average could be around 12 years old. Um, so it all depends on the individual, but Grayson is doing really well. He's obviously keeping up with the younger wolves and keeping up his place as pack leader. And we're very happy to celebrate him today and everything that he's done in his life. And before I go, kind of nice we're seeing him maybe slowly exit the camera view. But thank you so much, everyone, for joining us for the celebration of Grayson's birthday. This is our kind of middle birthday celebration. So we have one more, which is Reka's birthday. That is on May 23rd. Um, it's all part of our ambassador birthday fundraiser and kind of celebration. So if you know, if you feel like you might want to donate to that, we would be very grateful. It all goes towards caring for these wolves and keeping them safe and happy and healthy. Um, so feel free to check out our website or our Facebook. I believe there's a link on there as well. But either way, we're so grateful for you coming to join And I think we'll go ahead and end our webinar. Thank you so much, everybody.